In this episode, we are going to take a look how to handle login errors in our forms, and then you can take that knowledge and extrapolate it and use it on your registration form. The only reason we are not doing registration form right now is because registration form has many fields, and then we would have to fill all those fields out and it will take a long time. But as you will see, it's pretty much the same thing. So you would use the same methods on your registration form as you would do on your login form. Let's take a look at login user method. So if this Axios post passes, then we console log out our response, we set the token, we set the user, and we push the user to the confirmation page. But if we catch an error, then we just console log out our responses. Now, the reason I'm even doing this episode is because you will see in a minute that those responses are not formatted, not correctly. They are correctly formatted, but they're not easily handled on our front end. So we need to transform them into something that is more easily handleable. Handleable, is that even a word? I don't know. Never mind. So let me just show you what I mean. If I go to my app right now and do something like this, so the wrong email, the wrong password, what I will get is this errors object with login array in it that says the login must be a valid email address. If I do something like this, so just 2 characters in the email and 2 characters in the password, then I would get again errors object with now 2 arrays in it, login array, which has now 2 fields in it. The login must be valid email address and it must be between 6 and 255 characters, and the same thing is true for the password. Okay, so now we have at least 2 cases that we need to handle. Now let me show you this. Let me just clear this out. If I do not correct email address, but just an email address, so something like this, and I do the password. Now if I click login, now I don't even get an errors object, but I just get an error string, which is invalid credentials. As you will see, this can be pretty hard to handle because you are getting a little bit different responses. You are getting at least 2 arrays that you need to handle, that you need to go through to show those errors to the user and so on. So this is why I'm even making this episode. This is not so hard to handle, but I just want to show you. So now we know that we have at least 2 major cases that we need to handle. So one is when we are getting errors object, and one when we are getting just error string. So I'm just going to copy this out because we don't want to waste so much time with it. We did this a million times. So first of all, what I want to do right here is I want to set 2 states. So one is going to be login errors, which is going to be an array, because we ideally want to get at the end of this, we just want to get 1 array with all the errors in it, so that we can easily just go through them on our front end. So we are just going to set the state called login errors, and the other state for when we are getting just a string, we are just going to call that invalid credentials. And of course, we need some getters for that, and I'm just going to copy them right here. Right, so login errors, invalid credentials. We did that a million times already, and we also want to get our mutations going right here. So I'm just going to copy this out and paste it right here. So set login errors and set invalid credentials. And now we're all set up to do some logic right here in our login user method. To when we catch those errors, we are first going to try to catch the error with the string, because that one is easier, because then we don't have to transform anything. And for the second errors, we are going to try to transform that object to get just a single array of errors. Okay, so let's first of all just try to handle that string error that we are getting. So if we do something like, right, so we are getting data, error, and then we are getting this string. So what I want to do now is I want to test if we are getting that data.error response or if we are getting data.errors response, because if it's errors then it's an object. Okay, so if error, so this references this error right here, error response data.error. So if this exists, then all we want to do is just commit that error to set invalid credential state. Actually, to invalid credential state through our set invalid credentials mutation. And that's about it. So if I save this, go to my console right now, if we check out view dev tools, as you can see we already have invalid credentials because it's saving our state through this method that we set up in one of the previous episodes, so create persisted state. What I'm going to do right now is, first of all, I'm just going to go to application and clear my Vuex data, right? And the next thing I want to do is I just want to reset our invalid credentials and login error states whenever we catch an error. So for them to be nothing. And we are going to do that like this. So if we go to our login user method, where is it? Okay, so at the beginning right here, I'm just going to set invalid credentials to be nothing and so set login errors to be an empty array. Save this, go to our browser, and let me just try this out. So John, whatever, something.com. Click login, and now if we take a look at our view dev tools, we can see that invalid credentials are set. Now we need to handle the front end of it. So we are going to go to our reservation.view file, and right here we are going to create computed methods. Computed, and we are going to call this one invalid credentials. Invalid credentials, and what we want to do is just return the invalid credentials getter, right? And the second thing is we don't want to show this text right here, so we don't want to show invalid underscore credentials, but we want to show something like email and password do not match. So to do that, I'm just going to copy out this div right here. Under the form, we're going to paste it in here. So this is just a div with some Tailwinds classes. And what we want to say right here, so if invalid credentials exist, so actually not here, but here. So if equals invalid credentials. Invalid credentials, then we want to say something like do not match. So email and password do not match. Save it, test it out. As you can see, we are already getting that because this is already set. We can clear it out by again going to application, clearing out Vuex data. Refresh the page. And now if I do something like click login, now we get email and password do not match. Great. So now we need to handle those errors object and transform that errors object to be a single array with all the errors in it. Now in our store.js, we are going to do else, right? So if it's error, then do this, else we are getting errors, so errors object, then we want to do something else. Now what we want to do right here is we want to initialize an errors array. So empty array that we can fill it out a bit later down here. So we are going to use a for, and we are going to do const key. So this is the key of our objects. So of object dot keys, and what we are getting is error response data errors, right? Okay. And now right here we're going to go through our object. Now in that object, what we want to say is also error response data errors, and grab them by the key. And then we want to do a for each loop through that array. As you can remember, we are getting the arrays in that object, so login array and password arrays. So we are going to do for each error. We are going to call it just error, and now we want to push that error. So this is going to be the error in our login, for example, login array or password array. So errors dot push. So we are pushing those errors to this empty array. Push error, right? So this errors array now should be filled with some data that we can easily handle on our front end, and we can check that out by doing console log errors. Okay, save this. Let's just test it out. So if we go to our console and do something like this and do login, as you can see, we are getting this. So the login must be a valid email address. If we do something like this and click login, now as you can see, we are getting just one array with 3 messages in it. So the login must be a valid email address, the login must be between 6 and 255 characters, and the password must be between 4 and 255 characters, right? So this is great. So now we can handle that very easily on our front end. So first of all, we just need to commit those errors to the set login errors method, actually mutation, and then we will have all those errors in our login error state, right? This is it. And now we go to our reservation.view and we set up another computed property, which is going to be called login errors. So login errors. And it's going to return a getter called login errors. Okay. Not login errors, but login errors. Great. And now what we want to do right here, I'm just going to copy this from the our invalid credentials error, and instead of that I'm just going to remove this, and then we want to go through that array, because remember we are now just getting one array which is filled with all the messages that we need to show the user. So first of all we do if, so if login errors exists, right, then we need to go through them. So v4 is going to be error, and we want to catch the index of it so that we can set up our key in login errors, and our key is just going to be index. Okay, and all we need to do now is just show the error, and we do that by just doing error. And I think that should be it. Save this, go to our application and do something like this. Login. Now as you can see, the login must be a valid email address, the login must be between 6 and 255 characters. If we remove this right here and click login, now we get another message also that the password must be between 4 and 255 characters. And if we do something like John Doe and do something like this, then we delete all those messages, because remember we have this right here, so we are resetting them every time we get an error. And then we get email and password do not match. And that's about it. So that's the same thing that you would also do for your registration form. You will just check the responses that you are getting and then try to flatten that object with all those errors to just get a single array which you can easily go through in your front end. Okay, so this is it for this episode. In the next episode, what I want to do, and I think it's going to be the last episode in this series, is because somebody even asked me this and I think it's worth going through it. As you can see, our Vuex is now pretty long, right? It's pretty hard to handle. So what we want to do in the next episode is organize our Vuex so that we have mutations in one file, we have our getters in one file, and so on. So it's going to be much prettier that way. So I think I'm going to do that in the next episode, and that should actually be it for this series. Anyway, remember, everything we did here will be available for you on GitHub. The link will be in the description below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.